First item is to call the meeting to order, subject section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. We will move on to the second item is adopt the agenda. Dr. Spacuzza, is there any changes or modifications here?
There are no changes. Just wanted to draw your attention to the, we highlighted in consent the 3 modifications to the contract for St. Joe's. And then also there's an asterisk with the fall coaches. Based on a resignation, we will have an opening in wrestling. So that is the only difference in the paperwork that you have.
Okay. We need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Here to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to number 4, recognition of visitors. Is there anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized? Just step up to the podium. Nobody? None of you guys? All right. We will move on. Item 5, good news around the district. You going to Ryan first, or?
Yeah, we'll go to our student rep, who, Ryan, this is officially your last meeting with us, and we are very honored that you sat in and gave a student voice. And I also know that you've set up an appointment with Maria so that you and I can debrief the year and plan for your successor. So, Ryan.
Thanks for that. We're basically just focusing on closing up the school year right now. We had prom, which was a success, and everything else that came with it. And now we're just focusing on getting to graduation, getting kids elected for next year, and making a better future for PHS.
And what happens Memorial Day weekend?
Oh, graduation also is happening. I'm graduating.
Congratulations to you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Kosmowski, and he has a special group, student council.
Yeah, I'm gonna make Stacy Helders, our student council advisor, come on up with us, and she's got a group of young people with us today that have done some pretty amazing work over the year. We got back from a field trip today. Just want to shout out to Carrie Sizemore for putting together a really great field trip over at the Little River, and then working with the Prescott Sportsman's Club to be able to get the tracks machine for our student that was in the wheelchair, and he was able to participate with us and hike up to the falls and participate in all that, and just thank the Prescott Sportsman's Club for supporting things like that as well. Without further ado, Stacy.
Hi, I would just like to talk to you a little bit about student council. We have a couple of words that they'd like to say, and then we're going to present a check. Student council was kind of at a hiatus, so it's because of COVID, so we're back strong this year. And these are some of our student representatives, and they're going to introduce themselves, and then maybe we have a little spiel. So.
Go ahead and queue up right by the microphone.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Kosmowski, and I'm in 4th grade. The Student Council at Prescott Intermediate School is back in action this year after taking a small break because of COVID. This year, our Students Council members had an application process, and 20 members were chosen, which included 15 5th graders and 5 4th graders.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sully Anderson. I'm in 5th grade. And a few of the projects we've participated in and planned are: we lead the Pledge and daily announcements every day. Food drive for the Prescott Food Pantry.
I'm Nicholas Henderson, and we do dress-up days. We do a school-wide holiday ornament craft project, hygiene product drive for the Prescott Food Pantry, holiday appreciation letters to the intermediate staff, birthday cleanup, backpack, and school supply donation to the public food pantry.
We also organized and ran a school store that was open on Friday mornings. The school store helped us be entrepreneurs and we advertise, organize, make signs, work as cashiers, make change, and fill out deposit slips. I'm Gavin in 5th grade. Our school store helped us also raise money, and we voted to donate our proceeds to the Prescott Public Library. We are presenting a check tonight for $300 to Mrs. Wagner.
Thank you so much.
Impromptu, yeah, right.
I can say sure.
I am Carissa Wagner. I'm the director at the Prescott Library. We just wanted to say thank you so much for this. We greatly appreciate it, and thank you for thinking of us.
And then we did stuffed backpacks, like that was said in our speech, and their stuff was school supplies, and most of them went to Mr. French already. I just brought a few for an example and a picture. But we're gonna give those to Mr. French tonight. We'll walk over to him, the rest of them, but the rest of us are gonna introduce ourselves and their grade.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Johnson, and I'm in 4th grade. Hi, my name is Charles Adams, and I'm in 4th grade. Hi, my name is Vera Martin, and I'm 3rd. Hi, my name is Evelyn McGregor, and I'm in 5th grade. Hi, my name is Lauren Taylor, and I'm in 5th. Hi, my name is Natasha Christopher, and I'm in 5th. Hi, my name is Cooper Badenhorst, and I'm in 5th grade.
We had an awesome year, and like I just was talking to a few of them, maybe they can be Ryan when they get older, and hopefully they'll continue with student council in middle school. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. And Mr. French, you're about to get many prizes. Administrative team, you want to come up?
All right, Sarah Dusick, principal at Malone Elementary. First of all, I want to congratulate Faith Stewart and all of the K-5 students for the awesome concerts that they put on towards the end of April, beginning of May. I want to congratulate Faith. She put in a lot of time and effort into putting together 3 amazing concerts. If you were able to see them, they did not disappoint at all. Also, a public thank you to Malone Parent Committee for spoiling our K-5 staff during Staff Appreciation Week last week. They provided massages, and they provided breakfast and lunch and sweet treats and grab bags and just all kinds of great things to appreciate our staff. And then just a heads up that on May 31st is the 5th grade graduation at the Malone Intermediate Gym. And on June 1st is the kindergarten graduation up here in the PAC Center at 1:15.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Caudill.
All right, I've got some congratulations first to our National History Day team and the members of the team that qualified to go to nationals and be on Team Wisconsin. Congratulate our speech program for earning the Excellence in Speech Award, which is the highest honor given to speech programs in Wisconsin. Congratulate our softball program for being Middle Border Conference champions for the 2nd year in a row. And at that same night, we were excited to celebrate another Wow Day. Women of Will, sponsored by Under Armour. You probably saw a picture floating around of Vivian Johnson, who was the 4K student who volunteered to throw out the first pitch. She threw a strike, and the team signed the ball and gave it to her to have as a keepsake. So she was pretty excited about that. And we're honored to be one of 4 schools in Wisconsin to be a part of Under Armour's Women of Will program. Going to finish the seasons, postseason's upon us. Track will begin postseason on Monday. Boys golf and softball begin on Tuesday, and baseball will begin next week, Thursday. Thank you.
Mr. Figge.
Hey, good evening. We have a lot of things. This is a busier time of year for the high school. Congratulations to Miss Jones Simon and the junior prom committee for putting on prom this year. You see some pictures coming up with some rather dapper gentlemen on there. To Mr. Canfield and the entire band group, they put on a heck of a band concert last week. I think it's the first and maybe only time I've ever heard a high school band concert feature Metallica as a walk-up song. So only at a Prescott High School band concert would you see that. Choir concert is tomorrow night with a number of numbers, I think. And Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot. We also have some solos by students who got recognized at the state level for solo ensemble, of which I believe you were one.
Yes.
Fill in the gaps a little bit.
Oh, I thought you were gonna ever sing.
At State Solo Ensemble, if you have the highest score or are recognized as the best person at your site, you're nominated for an award. So we had, I believe, 3 choir students and 1 band student nominated for the award. So the 3 choir students will be performing solos tomorrow night.
Which is a fairly rare, especially for our size of school, it's especially rare to have that many people take the top honor. So a huge congratulations to each one of those students and to Miss K of the choir program. We held our scholarships or our financial award night last week. A very big thank you to Kiwanis for hosting the event, for Mrs. Susie Linder for spearheading the organization, and for all of our donors. We were fortunate enough to award over $60,000 that night. I believe it's the highest ever that we've awarded. And it's really kind of a testament to our senior group of award winners and how amazing they are. To staff appreciation last week, echoing what Ms. Dusick said, we had an amazing staff appreciation. I'd like to thank our parent committee. We have a smaller but very active parent committee. Helen Stokel, Jacek Brakowski, Carrie Sizemore, Cheryl Van Loon have really taken that on all year to the point where they've given up nights to go work at Minnesota Wild Games to fundraise so that they can provide those things to our staff. So thank you to our parent group for doing that. Our Latin honor students, we talked about this last month, have been selected, but what's brand new as of today is our summa cum laude board, with highest honors, is up in the Commons. And so as you exit tonight, you can look at our amazing group of students who achieved that highest honor. I think the picture's floating around, but I also wanted to recognize Mrs. Bonnie McNary, who is retiring at the end of this year. She's got a week and a half left after 37 years of service. And so a couple of announcements that lead into graduation, which is next week. We have a rigorous process to select our student commencement speakers. They have to submit an outline of a proposed speech that includes their theme, what they would say. If they pass that first round and are selected by our staff committee, they then have to submit a 1-minute video showcasing their speaking talents in a very short amount of time. And from there, we narrowed it down to 2 students. So I'm really proud to announce that Maddie Ryder and Ryan Engeldinger are our 2 commencement speakers this year for graduation. And I'm also very proud to announce that our summa cum laude group also has a similar process, although a little less rigorous, for choosing a keynote speaker. A staff keynote speaker can be any staff member in the district. And this year, by overwhelming votes, they selected Mrs. Bonnie McNary as our commencement speaker. So I think that's very fitting. 2 last things, and I apologize for going over. You gotta play me off. It's Academic Awards Breakfast, our first annual next week on Thursday, so all non-financial awards that we give, high honors, our Yale Book Award, Harvard Book Award, National Honor Society induction, we have CNA certification, all sorts of different awards that are non-financial but no less important are awarded next week. That's Thursday from 8 to 10 a.m. in the morning. And then obviously kind of the creme de la creme, which is Friday at 7 p.m. That's graduation, our commencement ceremony in the Prescott High School Gymnasium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Figge. Sandy?
Members of the board, Dr. Spikuza. I am bringing up the rear end here just to remind you all that it is, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And you all have in front of you a little mind jar or mindfulness jar. Bonnie Barker, our contracted school psychologist at the elementary level, and my mentor this year created these last weekend. This is what she did Mother's Day weekend. And it just kind of has a little thing to tell you how you can spin it and just focus on the glitter and your breathing and after hearing Mr. Figge talk about all of the amazing things that are happening at the high school alone, but then all of the busyness at the end of the school year, and just being amazed that we made it this far, I hope that everybody can take some time and just breathe and take it all in and truly appreciate what an amazing year it's been. And the bracelets are also from Miss Barker as well. But that's what I have. Thank you very much.
If you see anybody playing with these tonight, that means we gotta move the meeting along probably a little bit faster, right?
I did mention to Dr. Sakuza that in my classroom, I would say, this is a fidget. If you use it as a fidget, it's fine.
This is your cue
If it
right here.
becomes a distractor, Mr. Bilzek, it's fine.
I've never seen the board more focused. Everybody hit on, May is kind of this culmination, obviously, with the graduation of our class of 2023. But I did want to just acknowledge a couple things. Sandy Strand, thank you very much for taking the lead on writing a letter to our legislators about mental health. Ironically, it is Mental Health Acknowledgement or Recognition Month, and at the same time, the state legislature has removed all funding for mental health that was proposed by the governor. The Joint Finance Committee has not released or spoken to what their plan is, but I would hope that they and our community would not allow grants and things like that, soft money that has been put in place since COVID, to be removed for funding to meet the needs of our students. I also would ask our community to take action to encourage that money no longer be grant-based, but would become part of the overall funding mechanism, because it's not, it is essential services that public schools now provide for K through 12. May 1st, you saw and we recognized our staff that have been part of our teaching community and educational services for 5 years, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 30 years, and also our retirees. And then just wanted to acknowledge the parent groups, our business partnerships, and Kiwanis for celebrating the second week in May is where we acknowledge not only teachers, but all staff within the district. And then finally, at a federal level, some people may be wondering about that federal debt limit and does it really matter? But it does, because I had a presentation that we were going to be refunding through bonds to prepay some of our debt. Unfortunately, the federal government bonds that we were going to purchase, because they couldn't extend the debt limit, they were turned off the day we were meeting with Baird. And so that national crisis becomes a local crisis in being able to save taxpayers' money. So we'll continue to monitor it, but until that's resolved, our district wasn't able to complete that, but we'll continue to work with Baird. So when we can, we will prepay on our bonds to save taxpayers' money. And with that, turn it back over to the board.
All right, I don't know if that was good news, but we'll move on here. On to business. It is the month of May, which is when we elect board officers. So the way this works is we'll take a motion for each position in a second, and by statute I have to ask for, I'm required to ask 3 times for other nominations, and if there's no other nominations, then we'll move on to for the vote. So the first item is to elect a school board president.
I move to elect Mike Matzik as president of the school board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next up is vice president. Thank you.
I move to elect Tanya Holub as vice president of the school board.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? No other nominations? We have a motion and a second for Tanya. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Next up is clerk.
I move.
To elect Pat Block, as clerk of the school board.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? We have a motion and a second for Pat as clerk. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. And lastly is treasurer.
I move to elect Vicki Rudolph as treasurer of the school board.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? We have a motion and a second for Vicki as treasurer. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. We are now officially elected board officers here, so thank you. We'll move on to consent. We have 15 items that I will read off here. We have the April board minutes, regular board minutes, board checks and finance, non-licensed personnel, retirement, resignation, employment, change of non-licensed staff, selection of depository for investment funds, and I'll read this, I guess I'm going to read this whole thing. Renew annual designation of First National Bank of River Falls, Prescott, and the Wisconsin State Investment Pool as official school board depositories for general funds. Designate an official newspaper and publication of minutes. So renew annual designation of Pierce County Herald as the official newspaper and publication of business minutes. Renewal of WIAA annual membership. Renew food service agreement with St. Joe's Parish School. Returning head coach approvals for fall and winter 2022-23. Girls volleyball overnight trip to UW Whitewater in August. Football overnight trip to Holman in July. Girls overnight trip to Hartford in July. Girls overnight trip to Reedsburg and Toma in August. Girls golf overnight trip to Onalaska in August. Girls golf overnight trip to Bayport in August. And girls golf overnight trip to Madison in September. It's 15 items. Is there anything that the board would like to pull out of consent?
I do have a question. I don't necessarily want to pull it out. Can I ask a question though? Or
Go
do I
ahead.
want to pull it out?
Just go ahead. What's the question?
My one question is with the overnight trips, everything makes sense. It looks like the district's portion of the funding though is transportation only. Is that correct? Okay. I just want to make sure I was reading that right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything to be pulled out here? All right, I will adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? Consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. Can you imagine going through all 15 of those in a regular meeting?
I was actually thinking it wasn't too long ago that we used to pull those all out separate.
Right, so, very good use of time here. So we'll move on to item C, consider retirement, resignation, and new hires of licensed staff.
There are no additional retirements at this time. We do have 3 resignations. 2 of them are special education teachers, Emma Brennan-Bobert and Ross Warugula from 8th grade middle school, and Matt Rankin is our high school science teacher.
Anybody have any questions or comments on any of these?
Yeah, I guess I have one. Have we set up exiting interviews with any of these friends that are leaving the district?
Yeah, so in general, both the supervisors will follow up. They get an invitation from our HR, and then in June, we send out through school perceptions, an exit interview to all staff, licensed and non-licensed.
Anything else? All right, we'll take a motion here.
I move to approve all resignations.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. New hire?
We do have a new hire for middle school band, Allison Cotton.
Questions or comments on this one? All right, can you take a motion here?
I move to approve the new hire of Allison Cotton for middle school band.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. All right, item D is to set the date for the school board meetings. And Rick, what, the third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. is what we have now.
Correct.
Any conversation on this one?
We'll make a conversation, so this is the first year that we went from 7 o'clock to 6.
Right.
Maybe it's worth just a quick discussion on, how was that? I think for the administration that's here as well, that's a change, hopefully for the better, but maybe not, so.
Can you speak for that?
From an administrative perspective, 6 o'clock has been very welcome.
Better? Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing that makes it difficult is if we have a closed session that we have to do before the meeting because there might be an agenda item that we gotta deal with. But in general, it's been well received, I think. And we don't wanna change it, we don't wanna move it up any further than 6, we're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave it.
Leave it at 6 and,
Okay,
yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
somebody wants to make a motion here?
I move to designate the third Wednesday of each month at 6 o'clock PM at Prescott High School as the official date, time, and location for the 2023-2024 board meetings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item E, select delegate for CSA 11 at the annual convention on June 5th, so that's just one meeting. Is that what that's for?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, it's that meeting and then the CISA board meeting is afterwards, so it just makes sense for me to go.
Is that self-nominating?
It sounds like she wants somebody to nominate her.
Well, it just makes sense.
Vicki, now that you're on that
Yep.
board, so you'll be there anyways, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we wanted to, we could have somebody else as well? Because she's serving on that board, is that true? I'm not saying I want to,
Yeah, that
I'm just saying if anybody
that
wants to, we could probably
That I
have
don't
two.
know. I know the last time I went, a couple years ago, was just because Steve couldn't go.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know that we need to have anyone else.
I'm certainly not nominating myself.
No, I'm good too.
To delegate Vicki Rudolph as the representative to attend the CISA 11 annual convention on June 5th, 2023 in Turtle Lake.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We'll move on to item F, consider new position of head coach of sports performance.
And I'm going to have our activities director, Andrew Caudill, come up. And I know that you received a correspondence from somebody in the community, and Andrew will kind of share with this. Obviously, one of the things that can be difficult in understanding educational funding is that things come out of separate buckets. What he will be talking about does not impact additional funding from Fund 10, meaning that it's not taken away from any teachers or materials. In addition, it's really reconstituting a position, and so I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Yeah, before I start, I couldn't say it's some good news, but our softball program just finished off a win over the 4th-ranked team in the state, 4-1.
All right.
Congratulations, Nick and the girls, finishing off the season at 18-5.
Wow.
All right, sports performance. So what are we talking about? So what we're talking about is designated a staff member as the head coach of sports performance. This person would carry the same authority over our sports performance program as the head coach of boys basketball over the boys basketball program. The entire mechanism of sports performance, strength and conditioning would fall under this umbrella. It would take off weight from our current coaches that we currently piecemeal together our strength and conditioning program using our current staff and allow our head coaches to partner with this individual to build a strength and conditioning program that benefits our student athletes that are in season, also those student athletes that are out of season. They would manage the weight room, manage the equipment, make sure that everything is up to date. Right now, that currently falls on Jordan Hansen through being our head football coach and our PE teacher. This person would essentially be in charge of that as well. They would skill and technique development with our student athletes. One thing that we are talking about internally is putting together a nutrition program that we want to launch to our student athletes. If they elect to be a part of that, that would fall under this position as well. Also be a positive role model for our kids, get kids into the weight room, get them confident using the equipment, and understand what they need to do to get to where they need to be. and ultimately has a major impact on our student athletes that strive to compete at the next level. Because ultimately, that's a lot of times what holds them back is not being able to be physically ready. So that's what we're talking about with what the position is. So how do we do it? So what we do right now is we pay 3 separate coaches per season, so 3 seasons to be our in-season strength coach. We also end up paying staff an hourly rate to supervise the weight room. What we are proposing is taking all that money, pooling it together to pay this individual out of the district account. So it is no new money. I can tell you that I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today if I was proposing new money. So that comes out to be a base pay of $55.95. How I got that number is it's $18.65 times 3. The participation pay will be based on how many students are on a team. That's going to be your in-season students. So if a team has 25 or more participants in the program, it's $250 a team. If it's less than 25 participants, it's $100 a team. So in the fall, we have volleyball, football, cross country, girls golf, winter, handful of sports, spring handful of sports. That gets to be the district amount. Then also extended season pay is for when our teams are advancing in the postseason. Our current handbook has the chart that I presented to you a few meetings ago. The head coach for sports performance will get the value of 50% of what the head coach gets if the season is moving along. That is district money. On top of that, we have fundraising money. Fundraising money is not district money, state money. It's coming out of Fund 21, which is fundraising accounts for teams. Each team will give $75. Athletics will give $300. So that is the overall pay for this position. I will say that, as it's been discussed, we've had people in the community approach saying that they want to fundraise more. We ultimately landed on this because, well, I don't want to overextend, because ultimately if we say we're going to do something, we have to do it. So in talking with coaches, $75 a team was something that is absolutely doable. No one's really concerned about that. We didn't want to go too much. This position then is paid out of these funds that I'm showing you from August to May. So you may wonder, well, what about June and July? June and July, there's summer school money through strength conditioning class. So that is separate. So if this person is available in the summer, hopefully, and able to do strength conditioning through the summer, that is done through summer school. Already budgeted, already funded, not new money. So this slide probably has the most questions. So I'll stop here if you have any questions about this. Or you want me to keep going, whatever you would prefer.
Let's get a couple questions in here. Connie, do you have anything that?
Yeah, I have a couple questions specifically. I know we're talking about pay here, so just so I understand, base pay, that's at $5,595. And then is it a plus $250 per team?
Correct, plus.
Okay, or the 100?
Yep.
Okay. And then if they go, like softball's on their way to an extended season, it would be that 50% of the head coach for that
Correct.
season? Okay.
Yep. Because what this person, and I'll get to it in a future slide, but this person will ultimately supplement and support those teams. So if those teams are going later, similar with our head coach, then there's a little bit extra because the season extends based on what was originally planned. Because there's a lot of softball seasons that are going to end tomorrow. And then there's another handful on Tuesday, and so hopefully we're lucky to keep going. As we keep going, then it's just more days.
And then the fundraising piece, it sounds like you talked to coaches, they didn't think it was a big deal, but I was wondering if it was a hardship, was there a consideration for how many participants are on a team? For example, the 25 plus participants, it's probably easier to fundraise more money than the smaller teams.
Yeah, so ultimately as athletics, we'll help those teams, but every team in our department can more than cover that. In front day, I even had some coaches say, well, we can do more. I didn't want to do a system where just because a team fundraises more, then they had to pay more, because ultimately every team is going to get the same amount of services in there. So we picked a number that was fair to everyone, so while a lot of our teams could easily meet that plus a lot more, we took into account the teams that maybe don't have as much So we settled on $75 a team, and that's where the $1,050, and then athletics fundraising is the other $300. And what we have, I don't have it on the slide, but I had it in my documentation for you. This person will then get paid 3 times a year, so when the fall season ended, the base pay is divided by 3, participation pay would go out, and then the fundraising pay, athletics will pay 100, those teams in season will pay their 75. So it might not be exactly the same every season, but right now, all of our athletics coaches get paid in one lump sum at the end of their season. I didn't want to do it at this position because they would essentially start working in August and not get paid till June. So we would do it at the end of every season when we pay those athletic coaches their stipends.
And then my last kind of salary type question or stipend type question would be around how comparable is this to other districts for what they're paying in a similar position, district size?
Yeah, so ultimately what we do for strength and conditioning is probably in the middle of the pack. We are then lumping it into a head coach because they would essentially work all of the school year. So what we did is we compared it to what other districts are doing when they hire a company like ETS. ETS would probably cost us, Coach Anderson in the crowd, 3 or 4 times this amount. So easily, so I think River Falls is ETS. We've had a lot of coaches, people approach me about doing ETS. I think this is better because when you hire ETS then picks a strength coach, and then you get that strength coach. You didn't necessarily have a say in that coach, and you're paying a lot of money that frankly we don't. As I said, if I wanted that much money, Dr. Spacuzza probably would have hung up the phone, and we're not going to be able to fundraise that much just for this. So that's just not in the cards for us. This is something that we wanted to do that is, I think, better and not going to cost nearly as much.
That was all my money questions.
Pat?
The only money question I have left is, so the participation pay, the in-season, that's paid to the strength coach. It's not, the $250 per team, that's not an additional fee that a team would have to pay that. That's part of the budget, it's part of the numbers, it's part of the model that you guys already came up with, athletics fundraising and the team fundraising.
Yeah.
Plus then the salary that's already been.
Correct. Because the other thing we thought about is if we have a lot of people on a team, like track has 90 something, all those students are also paying the activity fee as well. And so all of that money goes into one pot, and then we would eliminate the strength and conditioning stipends, eliminate the hourly pay, and put it all together for our head coach.
So this might be an unfair question, but do you anticipate activity fees being increased because of this position?
No, I am not, haven't even considered increasing activity fees for this. If this would require increase of activity fees, we wouldn't do it.
Okay, all right.
If we're going to increase activity fees, it would be for a holistic reason across the board, not for one specific program.
Thank you. That's good.
Good question, Pat.
And Andrew, can you speak, because one of the things that we talked about, not only that we have our head coaches have kind of taken this on, fall, winter, and spring. This will lighten their load. You've included them in the conversation. In addition to working with athletes that are in season, by having this head coach and the qualifications that we want to post, who's the other population that this person could work with?
Yeah, so this person, part of their description, would not only have their in-season programs, their out-of-season programs, and because those student athletes that maybe don't do every season, they may have real reasons to be in there to get better because they are only going to do football. Ultimately, that has fallen on head coaches. Current strength coaches had to split their time. They're supposed to be doing in-season, but we need a service for out-of-season. So this person would then create those programs and then have extended time in there for our student athletes to do that work, because we want to give them the attention, and ultimately what has happened is we have supervisors in there that are helping them, but ultimately we are focused our programs on our in-season athletes, but out-of-season is just as important, including the summer work.
Vicki, do you have any questions?
No, my big question was where was all this coming from, and to know, I guess, that we're paying now for coaches to do this, 3 different coaches with their seasons to do this, and then on top of it, the hourly pay for supervision in the weight room. That was kind of my question, was like, don't we have someone doing this already? And we do, but that would then shift. Okay.
Yep, and the nice thing is that we do have a system in place. So let's say you give me the green light to do this and ultimately the search is not successful. We have something in place that we will continue to do, and we'll continue to see how can we attract a candidate. It's not like, oh, if we don't do this, then we're back to the drawing board, what are we gonna do? We'll continue what we're doing. As Coach Hansen put it to me that I liked is that what we're doing is good, what we're trying to do is great. And so that's what we're trying to get to.
Helen?
I guess a question I would have, you mentioned a nutrition program. So would that be if this position is filled and if that's a possibility to create that, or is that going to be something that happens right away with that position?
Yeah, so we're looking at doing that regardless. What's holding me up is adding that to somebody's plate to manage. Because whenever you do something like that, ultimately you have to present the information to families. We have to get parental consent because we aren't just going to give students stuff and parents have no idea. And that person has to understand how to manage that, manage product, and then we would have to talk about essentially a user fee to pay for the product. I think we have a good mechanism to go ahead and move forward. The reason you haven't seen it quite yet is I would like to have something like this where that's one of the responsibilities versus adding it to somebody else who's already doing stuff, and I'm looking to probably Mr. Hansen, that's probably who would fall on, and so I know he's eager to do it, but I'm also trying to be mindful of what that would look like.
Well, that was kind of one of my other questions I had, and I don't know if now's the time to ask or not. Do you have someone on staff who would be interested in taking this on? Like, because I noticed you said that this person could then maybe do other roles. Do we already have someone working at the school who has this type of training?
Right now, I do not believe so, because one of the things that we're requiring in the position is we are requiring the national certification of strength conditioning.
Okay.
Right now, we don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have anybody on staff that has that. And if we do and they apply, then we'll absolutely consider them. That is something that all the ETS strength conditioning coaches will be certified. Districts are slowly looking at it. What I think stops districts from really jumping into that completely, it's highly recommended. It's extremely expensive for the individual that get the certifications. So most would look to their entities to cover that. And again, I don't, no new money is the directive, and so we're not in a position to do that. So we look for somebody that has it already.
Okay.
So what we would do going forward is assuming we have the approval tonight, we will post the position. All goes well, hopefully have a name in June or July. June would be really nice, July is more likely for an August start. Have the required qualifications to possess the national recognized credentials, strength conditioning, minimum of 1 year experience as a strength conditioning coach, junior high school or collegiate level. Preferred is going to be minimum 1 year experience as a head coach, and then experience coordinating nutrition program as preferred qualification. And so I believe I shared the job description with you. That job description is very similar to what all of our other head coaches have, but tailored to sport performance. So the why I wanted to share with you, and why do this. One, benefits to students, reduce injuries, improve their long-term athletic development. This is a major part of athletic development. It's really come to be over the last decade. Improve their overall performance, improve their confidence, improve their health. Benefits to our school and district. One, limit liability. Outside of the tech area, the weight room is probably the riskiest room in the entire school. So you need people, that's why you have to have supervisors in there and ultimately have people that know what they're doing when they're in there. Increase professionalism and safety. Extra coach on staff for all sports. They provide an extra benefit to all of our teams. The due diligence in protecting the district and the individuals in there. And gender equity. I think that's a big one that kind of gets overlooked. And this is no fault to anybody. But when a sport coach is in there doing strength conditioning, whether we like it or not, there can be that mentality of this must be for that sport. And it's not. But when they see the coach, the assumption is, well, this maybe isn't for me. This coach would be for everybody, and the coach would be recognized as for that space and not for a specific sport. So I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you have.
I'm going to stay down here. Ryan, did you have any questions on this, or?
No questions. As a student athlete, I think this would be a really helpful position for a lot of kids. But no questions.
All right. If everybody's got a chance to talk, anybody have any follow-up questions on anything here?
I do.
Go ahead.
So a couple things. This is going to be a sports program type position. Is this in any way going to still limit accessibility to non-athletes utilizing the weight room? Will they still have the ability to maybe not so much be coached, but they'll be monitored and still? I mean, they're in the weight room, right? They own, quote unquote, the weight room. So students are still in there, whether they're athletes or not. That's going to work? Or
Yeah, so right now, non-athletes are using it within their PE courses, to my knowledge. We don't really have a ton of kids that are just in there. I know we discourage that. We want kids following a certain program and not just doing random things in there. Again, it's that due diligence. I know we do that currently, so I don't think that would necessarily change. Basically, anyone who goes in there is going in there with a purpose, not necessarily just to kind of do their own thing.
So we're not changing current practice. I mean, we're not, again, my question is more about limiting or reducing accessibility to kids who are currently using it.
No, I think if anything, it'll increase it, because ultimately our coaches that are stipended, they're stipended to do in-season work, and when those teams are done, they're ready to close up and be done, because that's what their responsibility is. Whereas this person would have the ability to do more in there and hopefully have it open more than what we have now.
Can I piggyback off that question? Is there a possibility of opening it up for non-athletes? Because when I look at the Ys, it hits all of the Ys except for athletic development, maybe, to have it as an opportunity for just a health
Just
physical
general
fitness.
Yeah.
So we use that within our PE courses.
But we can't always have a gym class.
I can clarify. So
Yeah.
any non-athletes are
Yeah.
they're able to use the weight room right now. But what we've tried to set in place is someone coming in, because we have limited space, someone coming in would be expected, or is always expected to follow a prescribed programming that we're using. It's, number one, because we have so many people cycling through a lift for the day, that somebody randomly coming in and using a squat rack or a piece of equipment disrupts everybody. Number two, it's a safety issue. So somebody doing something they saw on YouTube might not be the safest thing. We're not a Planet Fitness or something. So we have a lot of kids who are non-athletes, not in a sport, who are coming in after school and using it, but they're using a program that's generated by head coaches and head strength conditioning.
So they would be able to do that same thing?
Same thing, only
And
under
use
somebody
their
who
program.
probably has a national credential that can help them learn more.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, but it won't restrict the access for kids just because they're not in a sport, or that you're not in a sport, or whatever? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be the out-of-season component.
So if this person's not on before summer, who runs the summer?
So summer is already set. Coach Hansen has summer ready to rock and roll this year. The preferred start date of this person is going to be in August. If we find somebody, we get them approved in June, they want to start earlier, we can definitely look at that, but August is our goal.
My last two questions, I promise, they're kind of interrelated. My hope is that this would not be, if this moves forward, this would not be elective for a team. And what that would, my hope is that if you have a varsity sport, you will participate in the program.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and so that's not elective, and then that's going to be, and then here's the second part of that, is that this position, and I think maybe that structure, that has full, and then maybe unfairly, Mr. Figge at the high school level too, I mean, that has full administrative support from Dr. Spikuza, you, and high school administration, that this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, so this person would be a direct report to myself. They would be at the same level as all head coaches, and that would be the expectation that everyone participates, all in season required to participate, and hopefully the students see that benefit and they're wanting to go in there when they're out of season, participate in summer work. We've got a couple middle school kids that continue to come up, get them involved. But we're doing this for a specific reason, and that's to get our students in there. I mean, you go to watch some of our contests, and you look at the opponent, you look at us, and you look different. And we want to make sure our students have the tools for them to get better and see those benefits, and it'll be required for everyone to participate. As much as this person deems necessary, because they're the ones that are qualified.
Mike, that's good.
I had, you just brought up middle school, which reminded me, this is available for middle school athletes as well?
Yeah, so we have middle school athletes that take the buses come here from middle school, and they go in the weight room, and they follow the programs, and that's huge for them. I know there's an emphasis to get incoming ninth graders into the weight room this summer. While the numbers aren't big, it's growing. And so that is absolutely available to them, and we want them to get comfortable coming up here and using the equipment.
And then my very last question, kind of a two-part really, is will they be subject to our regular review process? And then is it a one-year contract as kind of all of our coaching?
1 year, in the job description I sent you has their evaluation process. Same evaluation process head coaches, just the details are different because of the position. One big detail that's different is right now we have student athlete evaluations for all of our coaches. That would continue. This person would have sport head coach evaluation, so I can see feedback on how the program is going.
Great, thank you.
Vicky or Helen, anything else?
No, I'm good.
I just had one quick question about the pay. So I don't know if you have the slide up still, Rick, or if you can go back to the pay slide. I should have probably told you to bring it up. So the base pay is $55.95, but then on top of it, you said that it's participation pay based on how many participants per team. Kind of ballparking, and I'm guessing you have already done this, like how much overall do you think this person's?
If we apply the participation pay to this current school year, it would be $2,600.
Okay, so on top of the 56, so roughly about 82.
Yep, so I wanted to ballpark it for Dr. Spacuzza. I took every program who had 25 or more, who had less than 25, and that's what it came out to be, $2,600. Next year could be different, and so there's a benefit to getting more students out for programs. So it could be more, it could be less, but then ultimately those students are, paying the activity fee and being on teams. So we did it that way versus having just a flat rate, because you could have a year where numbers could be way down. It's probably not worth it. You have a year where it's way up. So it'll fluctuate, but it'll reflect who we have out any given season.
And then the extended season pay, like how do you determine what's extended season? Because everybody makes the playoffs in some of these sports.
So we have the chart. So for all of our sports, we have conference championship, regional, sectional, state. And then for football, it's conference championship, playoff berth, level 4, and state. Whatever the head coach gets, this coach would get 50% of that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I mean, it could round up around 9, between 9 and 10, depending on how well we do, I suppose.
Yep, and that, I think it's good for in between, going August to May. Obviously, you would love to do more, but this fits what we currently have available to us right now, versus additional fundraising or hoping more state aids available. That might not be available right now.
So the other, I'm sorry, I don't want to drag this out, guys, but the first question was, we could raise more money, like the teams. What would be the benefit of it? Just to entice the position more to increase the pay, or?
Yeah, and what I had said for that is that could be something we evaluate going into year 2. What I don't want to do is entice a candidate by saying we're going to give you X dollars, fundraising comes short.
Yeah.
Now we are required to pay it because we'll have a signed letter of agreement. So ultimately, we would start with this, and if people in the community want to fundraise and come back with next year, we can. I'm just hesitant because you don't want to be like this with pay based on how well you fundraise, because no one's going to hey, I'm here, year 2, you're down here because we didn't fundraise as well. Or that parent that was really gung-ho about it had a senior, now they're gone, and no one really picked up that mantle. I don't want to put extra pressure on coaches and teams to fundraise for a position versus fundraising for their teams. So we landed on this because everyone can do it, and then that's,
So I have one more question. So then is the summer school pay for strength and conditioning, is that added into this, or is that
No.
extra on top of?
That'll be extra on top of it
Okay.
if they are looking to be around in the summer.
Okay, so that's not necessarily gonna be a requirement, it's gonna be an ask
It's
of
gonna
the.
be highly encouraged.
Okay.
But I didn't put that in there because that's not coming out of the athletics budget.
Right.
If ultimately they're a part of the summer school programs coming out of different pot, I would think that they would want to, because the summer school pay could be a decent amount compared to what they're getting,
Right.
August through May. And
Right.
hopefully then the total compensation for the year could get closer to 14, 15 with doing summer. But that's something that we'll definitely discuss with them.
Great.
Okay.
Good questions. Anything else? Okay, thanks, Mr. Caudill. Anybody want to make a motion?
This is where Steve would say the right terminology, but, so the motion right here that's up on the board is to approve a new position. Is that technically correct, that it's a new position?
I think so. Yeah, I think this is a.
Because
new
we
position,
already are
yeah.
doing this,
Yeah.
right?
We just
It's
don't
overall
have a person.
consolidation.
Not,
It's
yeah.
more consolidation, so I just want to make sure that we're okay, and maybe
Yeah.
Yep.
just point of note
It's
for
getting advertised and advertised as a new position.
As a new position.
I think the other, what we do right now is more of a stipend pay.
Yeah, for existing
Allowed and stuff,
employees.
But not a position per se.
Fair enough, just maybe for,
It's more of renaming and reconstituting the position.
so maybe, yeah.
I think we just go with new position.
That's fine. Okay, I move to approve new position of head coach of sports performance.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Aye. All in favor? I spoiled my vote. Opposed? That carries. All right, we're gonna move on to adopt licensed staff salary schedule for 23-24 school year.
So, as you recall, last month was a big extended meeting. We went through a lot of the finance situations. We shared with you some of the parameters that we were up against with regards to being able to get our by statute, we have to have letters of renewal out to our staff by May 15th, and they're returned by June 15th. Different districts are taking different perspectives. In fact, St. Croix Central is talking to their board for the first time about raises. Other districts near us put out letters of intent without salaries. We really believed that it was important both to signal to our staff our appreciation for the work that they've been doing. You gave us direction, meaning the finance and HR, to move forward. Know that the final budget is not approved until October for next year. I wanted to thank Chantel Byram, who is our HR specialist, and Maria Damiani, who got all of the contracts out to our staff during staff appreciation. We did follow the guidelines that you set for us. On average, the pay increase is a 4% increase above their current salary. In addition, any staff member that's eligible for lane change is able to move forward, and that's usually from our teachers that are advancing beyond a bachelor's and they're basically getting college credits, as well as masters, and we have different lanes for that. In addition, we needed to now come back to you and give you the pay scale so that HR can continue to recruit and place our staff, new recruits, onto that scale. And that also will then get published into our handbook, and that handbook is then posted for our staff and availability. And then, obviously, we want to make sure that all staff are being compensated. We're following kind of the same rules, and that is going to be a separate item after this. I did want to share that our hourly employees did receive letters of insurances already. We're ahead of the schedule, and we have given that out to our admin assistants, our educational aides, which are both regular and special education. We've received back all of our bus drivers. Custodians are year-round, and so they don't have a letter of assurance, but they already, you'll see in the next item about the pay increases, food service, and our media aid. How that plays out for the new salary schedule It was a lot of work that we had shared with you last month as kind of an exploratory. We were able to make sure that it was proofed, did the mail merges. I did meet with staff on May 8th. I met with the high school and middle school, and then met with Malone Elementary and the intermediate school on May 10th. As you can see on the far right is the current salary schedule. It starts with a BA, a bachelor's degree, and it goes across to MA plus 30. As you can see, the first green line is that our current salary for a starting teacher this year was $41,200. The average of CISA 11 was $41,400, and now our average starting salary will be $42,800. As you can see, each step then, each cell was increased by 4%. That allows us to keep and place individuals across time. The average increase is $2,200. That continues since 2019, an increase of salaries that were basically a step was $685, and we've been able to extend that. So this is the chart that we're asking for approval so that we can get this into the handbook and then posted for HR so that she can continue to recruit.
I take it you're done with the
I'm done.
Okay. Pat, did you have any questions on this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Rick, there's nothing in here that's changed from all of our discussion last month, correct? I mean,
correct.
I don't have any questions, no.
All right, Tanya?
My only question was, last time I brought up a separate stipend pay for staff that are required to have a specialist degree in order to receive their license and maintain it. Did you guys talk about that?
Well, not at this time. I think what we would do is come back to you once the legislature has approved the budget, and then also when we update the handbook. So Chantel with HR will be coming to you in August with a new updated handbook. Basically, every 2 years we try to refine and tweak it. It's definitely something that we have marked for being able to give somebody with those certifications an additional bump.
Thank you.
Vicki?
And I guess since we talked about it last month and the licensed staff is aware of this, have we gotten feedback? I mean, are we on the right track?
One, they're appreciative. We already have 30% of the contracts back. They were technically the first day that they could return them was May 15th. So I believe, you're not going to make everybody 100% happy, but I think the 4% was appreciated. And also knowing at this time of year exactly what their salary is going to be also was appreciated.
Okay. Thank you.
Helen?
So just a point of clarification, because I wasn't part of the board last time. So what we're looking at is current staff members, the current cell that they were at was raised by that 4%.
That is correct.
And so are these also, sorry, point of clarification, are these, because I see it's cut off, but there used to be, there was A, B, C, kind of.
Yeah, and the scale, you can kind of see the masters still, it's like, do you have a line A1, A2? We could have also gotten rid of, historically, we had numbers, we went to letters. At this point, the grid on the left is really more for us to be able to put it into the system of Skyward and make sure that a staff member knows which cell they're in. So those are things that we'll kind of work out between now and August.
But I think kind of your question is, what does it mean? Is it like, row 1 is 1 year experience, or is it 1 to 3, or is it, what is that actually?
Yeah, since 2018, it's related to years of experience, but it's not exactly the same. So we, in 2018, as you recall, we did a professional pay through TeamWorks for 18 months. We consolidated the steps, so it's related to years of experience, but it's not specific to. The reason that we went with this, obviously, is it's very clear, it's something what our staff is familiar with. and it allows us to get the 4% onto the scale. This is also making our salaries more competitive. And then how people find kind of row and column is really kind of a payroll and HR construct.
Yeah, any other questions, Helen?
Sorry, I'm just a teacher, so I'm silly with numbers. But so what I'm looking at right now is that from, if I was making, say, 41,200 last year, I would now be making this year or next year the 42,800?
That is correct.
And potentially you would go down to,
No.
that's the HR stuff, right?
Well, at this time, they will, their contract read, so if I was currently a 41,200 salaried employee, their contract that they received stated they would be paid 42,800. It's a 4% increase above what they're currently earning.
Okay. Ryan, do you have any questions here on the?
No questions on this.
All right. Rick, it looks good to me. It's good to get this taken care of. I know we're under uncertain times, but it's kind of a leap of faith right now with what we're hoping to get for additional state aid from the state. And I think it goes a long way with the teachers, and I hope they're appreciative of it, and that I'm glad we could do this. So we can take a motion if we're ready.
I would move to adopt licensed staff salary schedule for 2023 through 24 school year and posting it into the employee handbook.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item H, adopt hourly pay rates for 23-24.
So, following up on the directive of the board, we've been working with and trying to benchmark different categories of our staff. As you'll see at the chart that's being provided here, our hourly employees go from step 1 to step 5. We are kind of looking at and working with HR. The reason that you see custodians highlighted in green is that we currently have 3 positions that are posted for night custodians. Night custodians do get a differential. The differential is 65 cents an hour. The current salaries being posted out there are $18 an hour. So it's usually with those positions, the step 1 is higher than all step 1 are from admin assistants to food service have been elevated, continuing our benchmarking against other districts. The custodians did increase at the base step 1 by 50 cents. Everybody else was 25. That's basically the market analysis that has been done by HR. Food service, just a reminder, it is one that it has been one of the lower paid positions. The challenge for us right now is that Fund 50 has to be self-sufficient. We are not currently breaking even, and so we did have the increase. It does increase 4%. You'll see also once you get to steps 4 and 5, the percent increase was a little bit more on the percent, and that was kind of playing into longevity. And so what we're trying to do is have people that can accelerate through, get to the higher salary. And so we did try to stay within the 4%, but I did want to share with you as we worked on the current structure and then the increases, it is ranging from about 4.1 to 4.5. Based on the hours, obviously custodians are full-time all year. The other positions are not year-round, and some are not full-time. Sue thought that from a finance perspective, the additional range of 4.1 to 4.5 stayed within the boundaries that she felt comfortable with, and so that's this is the chart that we thought would still fit within our financial parameters.
right. Vicki, any questions or comments on this one?
No.
Helen?
No.
Ryan, any questions on this one?
No.
Pat?
I must not have taken a very good note from last time, so maybe different than the licensed staff. The non-licensed staff, is there pretty good clarity as to what step they're in? You know, is that part of their annual kind of review process? And so there's good clarity, right? And nobody on the non-licensed is taking a step back in the steps, right? I mean, they're all maintained in kind of the, I don't know what the game hasn't changed, right? They still have the same.
Yeah, so
we haven't changed the rules to take the steps,
Yeah,
correct?
so,
Okay.
yeah, for this, and that's a really good clarification, every employee has been advanced one step from where they were, which is how they get that 4% increase. And then one of the questions somebody would ask is, what happens when I'm beyond step 5? So I've been beyond that, then that just becomes a permanent, whatever the board approves. So anybody that's above step 5 gets a 4%.
Thank you.
Good question. Tanya?
No, I'm happy to see that we're looking at increasing these. I know that there are some of the positions we've worked on throughout the years, but these are hard to fill positions. And there are some of the people in our district who really keep us running from day to day, so they're important positions.
Agreed. All right, if somebody wants to make a motion, now is the time.
I move to adopt hourly pay rates for 2023-24 school year and hourly pay rates for, what is this? Should I say how should I say this?
I think it's just hourly pay rates.
Just hourly pay rates? Okay. Start again. I move to adopt hourly pay rates for 2023-24 school year and post in the employee handbook.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries, and that is it for business. We're on information discussions. The first item is the athletics code.
And on an annual basis, at this time of the year, kind of on our continuous improvement, we have each of the different departments come forward with recommendations, and I'll turn it over to Andrew. This is more high level with regards to the athletic code.
Yeah, thank you. We moved it up this year. So we have info discussion this month, action next month, because in July, registration's open and we don't want to change the activities code midstream with our process. So this year, recommending 2 changes to the activities code. The first one is a new concept. It's called the honesty clause. Some other districts that I'm aware of have something similar. So what the honesty clause does is if a student has a code violation that involves drug, alcohol, or substance abuse, and the student themselves informs me of their violation prior to the administration having any knowledge or any inkling that this offense occurred, it'll still count as a code violation. It will still be the first strike, but instead of a 25% violation for athletics, it'd be a 10% violation. And then for performance activities in clubs, the suspension is reduced to a 1-week suspension and a minimum of 1 performance. Reasoning is encourage students to be honest and upstanding, to then understand their mistake, and then they get a reduction in penalty. It does not apply to the second offense or the third offense, which then leads to a permanent suspension. So ultimately, I discussed this with my parent advisory committee, pros and cons, and ultimately it was supported that gives students an opportunity to be honest about their mistake. How many students actually take advantage of this? I don't know, maybe not a lot, but the risk is out there then that if you get caught, then it's a more significant suspension. So that's the first recommendation. The second recommendation is not a new concept, it's just a change. Currently in our activities code, we have violations, suspensions for behavior violations in the school. However, the language in the activities code does not line up with the behavior matrix very well, and that runs into challenges. on how the behavior matrix is applied by the school administration versus on how I have to apply the activities code. So I've supplied new language that's cleaner, and what we will do is it'll be clearly notated then in the behavior matrix that if a student has a violation of a certain kind or a certain level, it is a code violation, the activities code, and the activities code will list a progression. Then if on the first offense it's this suspension, and it continuously gets worse if there's continued behavior issues. With that, we are recommending that we eliminate the academic dishonesty clause and the clause on suspensions for serving an in or out of school suspension. It does not mean that those things are not being considered, but they are addressed in the behavior matrix, so it takes away conflicting language and redundancies. So those are the two recommendations this year. This is info and discussion. I'll bring it back for action in June, and then it'll go into effect in July.
Tanya, any questions here?
Not really. I read through it. I would just say my only thing with the honesty clause, the athletics is, well, first of all, is 10% the minimum that WIAA requires us to do?
So WIA requires us to have a board-approved activities code, and it requires us to address these. It does not have a specified contest, so that's why you see some schools having different suspension than others, because it's actually local control.
So we still fit within all those parameters. And then so the athletics makes sense to me. The one with the performance for, I just think of like our theater, and missing one performance within our theater is really uncomparable to 10% of a baseball season or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was my biggest worry, I guess, with this.
That was what I had a question about too.
And I think it already said one performance for theater or something in there, so it was kind of like, well.
Yeah, so I went back and forth on that one. You want to reduce the suspension. It was easier to come up with an athletics number because it's based on percentages. Can't really do percentages for club activities and performance activities. So I kept the one performance in there. However, I mean, I'm amendable to changing that. I was trying to find a healthy balance of still having accountability because we are talking about a serious issue, but also want to have some sort of benefit to coming to me and disclosing that voluntarily by the student. And so trying to find that happy medium was a little bit of a struggle on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of a suggestion specifically with theater, and I couldn't either. So I understand, that's different because there's two performances, three, and I don't know.
I can definitely take that, back to school administration, Mr. Figgy, Mr. Montreal. Can talk to, Ms. Camerath, Mr. Canfield. One thing also to note is that our activities code does not cover anything required to earn a grade. So if you're required to perform in a fine art event for your grade, the activities code cannot prevent you from performing because you are required to do it. So if it's a grade base, it doesn't apply. If non-grade base, then it would apply.
So then, we're talking about the performance, that one. The next one down, that's another one I was kind of concerned about, and I thought, wow, that seems pretty bad when you're suspended from activity for half of the term and ineligible for honors for one term for school activities and organizations. What is that applying to?
So it's going to apply to National Honor Society, Student Council. It's going to apply to those types of positions. In the current code for leadership positions on the first offense, it's loss of position eligibility for one term, and then for school activities, you're suspended from the activity or ineligible for one term and you lose honors. So I cut it to half the term, but also said you still are ineligible for honors for a term based on the violation.
So I guess is there somewhere then that explains what this school activity / organization is for the students? I mean, they are well aware of which one of these they would apply to, or would apply to them, correct?
Yeah, so in the activities code, Appendix A has the chart, and we have athletics all the way across, and so yeah.
Okay.
So the performance base is gonna be speech. We really don't, outside of, we have National History Day. We don't have a ton of activities that are performance-based that are not athletics, and then you have your fine arts, your theater program, your choir, band. But again, if it's grade-based, it's not gonna count, but if you're in solo ensemble, you're going to compete, then that is extra, so.
So where does like forensics fall under this sort of?
Forensics is going to fall in a performance.
Under performance,
activities.
okay. Okay, so organization, like you're saying, student council, honor society, that sort of
Yep,
thing? Okay.
yep.
Okay,
So again, like I said, that one took some time to try to figure out how do you reduce the suspension to make it worth the student to come forward, but also still having a consequence, because the type of violation we're talking about is driving under the influence. I mean, we're talking could be some hefty issues that ultimately can come to our attention.
okay. So then my other concern was the wording of the honesty clause, because I read it twice. And I'm like, is this the student coming forward on themselves, or is this a student reporting another student? I was very confused. Like I said, I read through it twice. So I don't know if it needs to be reworded, that if a student informs the activity director of a code violation involving themselves about drug and alcohol, whatever, that student then would receive the suspension, because
It
it's...
only involves, you can't report somebody else and
Okay.
qualify in the honesty clause. It has to be the offending student has to come to me and say, I did this, and we can't have any prior knowledge of it.
I do think that would be an easy clarification in there, because right now it just says if a student informs activity director of a code violation.
I think for
So I think
for
we're
students
only
it might
talking
be
about
clear,
yourself
but
here. Yeah.
but for parents it might not be. So I think just saying that informs
We can.
whatever
Yeah.
themselves
Have it
or
come back,
whatever,
yep.
yeah.
Helen, anything on this one?
No, I think I'm good.
Anything down here?
My only comment is that I think it's good. I mean, you guys are right though, right? You might find some inequity here, and unfortunately, no good deed goes unpunished. So, the other way to look at it is you just do nothing, right? And you still miss a performance, right? So, I mean, I don't have much to give you other than, I like it. We're trying to take a step. We're trying to affect correct
Teach accountability.
behaviors, right? Yeah, so there's no help for me, but it's gonna be really hard to find the balance between the activities and the performances. And it is what it is in this case, I believe, but it's my opinion.
Ryan, anything on this?
Yeah, I think my only thing would be, it might be helpful to seek recommendation as far as like performing arts, like suspensions goes, just to make sure that the decision is like equitable, because like Tanya said, like, it's really not the same thing, but other than that.
All right. Okay.
Works, great.
Thanks, Mr. Cotto. We'll move on. Item B, update on summer school registration.
Our summer school.
Couldn't wait to get up here. She waited patiently all meeting.
Johnny on the spot. All right, you can flip to the next slide there. So I'm Sarah Rusick, the summer school administrator as well. Before I get in on just kind of the general information, I want to give a shout out to Susie Linder, who is my administrative assistant for summer school. And she has been crazy busy since the beginning of March with registration and phone calls and fielding them from parents. And she takes care of a lot of stuff before it gets to me. So she does an awesome job. And then also Andy Holland with the shift over to Infinite Campus. He is integral in making sure that we have the system set up for registration and ready to go, and then on the back end building the classes. And being an Infinite Campus, it helps us with our reporting back to the state. It creates a lot of the formulas for us so that we aren't having to enter those formulas and do them ourselves. So having it in Infinite Campus makes my job a lot easier in September when I have to go to download paperwork for a TPI. So huge shout out to both of them. So Summer school is scheduled to happen Monday through Friday, June 12th through 30th. Classes are on the hour from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We are going to have 4K programming this year at Malone Elementary, and then all K-12 programming up here at the high school because of the construction happening in all the other buildings. There will be classes in the core class areas like reading, writing, and math, and then non-core like arts, computers, sports, all of those. High school will be offering some credit recovery, driver's education, speed and strength, and then for 1 week, Mr. Kozlowski does safety. And then we also have 2 different swimming lesson sessions where we partner with Ellsworth and do swimming lessons for students, and those are highly attended. We serve over like 100 students just in our swimming lessons that go for their summer school program, so that's huge. And then I already stated that we do a lot of all registration has shifted over into Infinite Campus. Last year, according to our data, we had 499 4K through 8 students participate in our summer school programming. That doesn't count the number of students in the high school, like with speed and strength and driver's ed, and then their credit recovery and accredited courses. And this year we're showing 500, but both Susie and I believe that number to be a little bit higher. And registration closes. It closed right before spring break, but it's never really closed. It's just, it will never turn anybody away. But they are limited in what courses that they have available to them if they would register now. So. And then, like I said, Infinite Campus really helps us on the back end with the, we have to, it's called an ADM that we have to report to the state to get our full-time students. And having it in Infinite Campus, it spits out a spreadsheet for me that gives me all that information instead of me having to go through every class and calculating that ADM. So, and then also part of our summer school programming includes our return to learn days. We started those back the year after we were coming back off of COVID, and it was just kind of a ramp up to learning, get students back into the classroom, get back to the field from school after being virtual. And then we've just kept them because we are finding a lot of value in them. They all look, the ramp up to learning or return to learn days look different in the K-3 building versus the 4-5 building versus the middle school and high school. It's more based on what the students need, and it's a really good, I think all of the buildings use that time for their transitional grades, so like 5th grade going into middle school, 4th grade going into the intermediate building, and 9th graders coming into the high school. But they all kind of create their activities and routines based on what the need is and what's developmentally appropriate for that age level. This year, our return to learn days are August 30th and 31st. Because they happen before the September 1st date, we are able to use that for summer school programming, which is nice. It's a normal school day. They provide transportation, lunch and breakfast is provided. They are recommended, but they are not required for students to attend. But we get quite a bit that actually do attend on those days. So. And then if we look at just the historical data of where are we at now versus our pre-COVID numbers, if you look up there, 2019, the FTE is just the number that comes out that we create in our document that goes to TPI. In 2019, which would have been the summer pre-COVID, we had 71 FTE, and then 2020 was the year that we went into shutdown. And DES had created a virtual summer school for that time, and we had 47 FTE. And then 2021, we had 62 FTE. It was still considered COVID. We did have on-site summer school. We did still require masks. And then that was the year that we implemented the one return to learn day on August 31st. And then last year, I think would be our first year considered summer school with post-COVID era. There were no COVID protocols in place. And we submitted for 72 FTE for last year. Again, our numbers are pretty steady with where we were pre-COVID time. Some of that is due in part to those return to learn days. I would believe that the return to learn days almost give us anywhere from 7 to 12 FTEs in and of themselves on those return to learn days. So those days, depending on how the calendar plays out, are pretty integral in our funding that comes from summer school. So.
Can you just remind people what FTE stands for?
Full-time educated.
Enrollment.
enrollment.
Yeah, so it's the student.
And one
additional-
FTE equals, it says down there below, almost 48,000.
Wow. Nice.
Pat?
Summer school starting, this is our last board meeting before that kicks off, and we've got a big move happening too. Right, everything going good, everything's planned, and maybe this is a sneak question, Rick, about space and.
We are on track with our planning for summer school.
Yes.
I've had to work a lot with Josh Figgy to ensure that we have the spaces available, we have the rooms mapped out, we have the teachers and the aides lined up and staffed and scheduled. Susie's working behind the scenes to finalize the class placements and schedules for each of the students. And then what we kind of did up here, because it is such a big building, and we have quite a bit of little people coming this way, we kind of potted them out. We created a green pod and a red pod and a yellow pod. And like the green pod is kind of earmarked for kind of our K2 students. And they'll kind of more stay in that area. It's not a perfect science because they shift back and forth between core and non-core. But Susie and I sat down with Josh and we came up with a good plan for how can we place these littles in a space among bigs that are coming in to do credited courses and driver's ed and speed and strength and all of that kind of stuff. And then Andrew Cotto worked with me to give up some gym space in the more needed June for like camps and stuff that would normally be happening. But we will definitely look forward to being back to our other buildings.
Tanya, anything else?
Okay, so it was 500 students are registered right now, more coming, which has to be close to about 40% of our student population, which is just, I think, really promising. And we're always trying to expand. That secondary level is hard to capture, that middle school level. I mean, there's definitely some different groups, and so it's really encouraging, I think, that we're capturing more than our traditional elementary kind of kiddos.
Well, and to be clear too, that 500 number is really just our 4K through 8 students.
Oh, not even
high school. So
Yeah.
that 500 doesn't include any of the speed and strength classes, any of the driver's ed, any of the credit.
So that's more like
requirements.
70% of our kids, which is also, I mean, like above everything else, just really great learning opportunities for our kids. So that's really great. You talked a lot about Infinite Campus and registration, and I just wish you were here back in the day when we met at 4 in the morning at the parking lot. And so it's good knowing that our systems have evolved and changed, and I think from that really is just more equal access for students and families to get the classes that they want and stuff, which is great. And then the last thing is just so our community knows, those FTEs really matter to us. A robust program matters to us because not only is it student learning that's happening over the summer, and engagement and socialization, all that good stuff, but it also goes into our budget. And I believe it's 3 years rolling, those FTEs matter. And so that, it really does, we put a lot of energy, you put a lot of energy in this, and it matters to us as a school district, for taxpayers, for our community, because it comes off, it adds to our budget. It's really a win-win for us and communities and families. That's all I had.
Well said.
And with the Infinite Campus system, one of the tricks behind the scene is our St. Joe students aren't enrolled into our Infinite Campus system, so Susie and Andy literally have to build a whole different school. With adding any of our St. Joe's enrollees into it. And last year was a little bit clunky, but this year it worked really well, making sure that the St. Joe's families ahead of registration time had everything that they needed in place so that their students were already entered into Infinite Campus so that they were able to have the same registration opportunity as the public school students.
That's great.
Oh, nice.
Vicki, you got any questions?
No, I thought it was great that you finally don't have to sit down and input all of that stuff into a spreadsheet. They're very time consuming, so that's great. And the fact that, second year now with St. Joe's, being able to get in there and, register like that, that's great. So, good deal.
Helen?
I think my question was answered because it was the post-COVID question. But the other thing maybe, shout out to the teachers that do it because, they're amazing for that. Maybe a survey after the fact on what, like some of those older kids, if we ever thought of that possibly. on some classes that they might like, maybe moving forward, if you ever thought of that, but yeah, awesome job.
Ryan, you doing summer school?
Not this year.
I have one quick question here. And this is more for you, Rick. So the number, this 2022, that's from last year. So when do we report for the 2023 FTE for summer school?
So that'll be done by Jackie Montreal and Sarah, and that will be our third Friday count in September.
So does that go, like, when do we know what we're getting for money for is it next year or this year?
No, so it'll
Right?
impact the school year of 23-24.
Okay.
And that's why, the final budget is approved in October. We'll have those numbers all clarified by September.
So next year's budget, the 23-24, so that's the fall, 23-24. So I'm looking at the 2020, the 47, that drops off because it's a 3-year average. So
Correct.
We'll get a little bump in enrollment.
Exactly.
In dollars, okay.
That's our increase.
Yeah. Right, there you go. All right,
Don't say that.
all right. Thanks, Sarah. All right, next up and last on the information discussion is the Vision 2035 process.
So we left you at kind of sharing about Vision 2035. And Ryan, do you remember what you were thinking about when you were in kindergarten?
Oh, I don't even know. Probably fruit snacks.
What did you want to be when you were in kindergarten?
I don't even know. Nothing.
And so, how has your academic program changed over the 12 years you've been in Prescott?
Putting her on the spot,
A
Rick.
lot.
I bet you didn't know this was coming.
No.
I know she can.
Do you feel like you're in school?
Yeah, I mean,
Think of all the things that have happened. Right? This building didn't exist, right? There were portables that were in the district. And so, in some ways, I just wanted to remind people that Vision 2035 wasn't randomly selected. One, it's trying to look out into the future about how education and teachers teach differently than they did in 1960, when 3 of our buildings were kind of built in service. We know that students learn differently, and we've invested in technology and different programs. And so this is a time, one, to take a pause and think about, in 2014, as you were moving as a board to be able to work with our community, to set up a referendum, to create 4 buildings, a lot of things have changed for the better. And this is a time for us, it took a little bit longer, but we now have every student by fall of 2023 in the right buildings that are probably better set for how they currently learn and are taught. The next thing, though, is that we are going to have new students in new buildings. And so one of the things that we wanted to talk about was, are those buildings now going to be representing grades 6 through 8 and 4 and 5 over at the middle school facility? Do they need to be modified in any way, shape, or form? And so when we went out for the referendum was to make sure that our buildings were sound, the envelopes were good, and that we could make sure that they were still available for us for education. But we also know that we've done outstanding things. Michael Kozmowski has shared, and we know that even though we were dealt a curveball that no one saw coming with a global pandemic, our students continue to improve in their state standing in academics. We increased the number of students that were making their goals, both in our local measure and state measure, and we're at the top of the class. So what we're really looking at is Vision 2035, is that is and will be the graduating class of our current kindergartners. So if we were starting to think about how will the learning environment need to change over the next 10 to 12 years, this is a time to make sure that our teacher voices and our student voices are captured, and to identify what investments we need to do in those facilities to make sure that we're enhancing the way students learn, so that we're always improving and refining what we do. In addition, we understand that extracurricular activities can be a hook for students. There's really good educational research that talks about students that are engaged in one or more activities tend to perform better, not only in the classroom, but also with regards to mental health. Connecting kind of the things that we talked in the introduction. We know that we provide not just extracurricular activities for our students, but we also provide extracurricular activities for the Prescott youth. We run all of the youth programs. So what this is allowing us to do as a school board is to hit pause, reflect on where you've been, and then to start to include the voices of our students, our staff, ultimately coming back then to families and also our community. We talked a little bit with you about having a couple options, and there was an option A and an option B. And so for homework I kind of gave you is to kind of look at, first and foremost, have we identified the right vision areas that we need to talk about? And then we have prioritized those as an administrative team and including our teacher leaders to talk about the academic experience. What is the desired daily experience we want for our students? How should the space look? And I'll give, as an example of STEM rooms, and how does that look in a 6-8 program? Then we want to be able to get feedback and include our families who are closest in the engagement to our students and our staff, and then basically come out to the community. As we do that, we know that this is going to be something that has to be intentional, it has to be strategic, and we can't rush it. Mike and I were on a conference call yesterday with Teamworks, and as we kind of walk through the different options, what I would like to propose is that we have to get this right. We have to, because learning is our primary business, we need to make sure that we take the time with our students in the current buildings next fall and to work with our students and staff in those new buildings to ensure that the enhancements that have to be made, they've been able to live in that space and refer back to you. So one of the things that we're recommending is not to cheat the process or cheat time and give us an opportunity to kind of start with student engagement. We would include kind of vision areas 2 and 3 to be able to kind of get them to talk about the programs and then the space. We would include students 6 through 12, and we can also go lower depending on the type of feedback that we're getting. Staff have already been engaged, but we would look at surveys, we would look at discussion groups, and then obviously through technology, videotaping and things like that. We would then want to come back to our families to be able to give them options for them to respond to. And usually what we're looking for is, here are the options and investments we want to make in our programs. These are the investments that we want to make in the space so that we can enhance learning. And then for them to identify what are the strengths, what have we omitted, and how could they make it stronger. Then we would go back to our staff. So this is going to be an iterative process. To be able to really dig into this, we are recommending that we have, and I kind of hinted at this, a June work session so that you can really look under the hood and go through these 3 vision areas and identify, do we have them in the right priorities? How does the timelines look? And how would we have this facilitated? It is very different than a facility advisory committee, because this is going to be including multiple people's voice across time and then bringing it out to get feedback. And so it's going to be kind of this, if you will, an iterative process to continue to refine a proposal across time of what Prescott Public Schools will look like by 2035. So, any questions about kind of the 3 areas that we've identified to focus on, anything that we're missing, and then also the stakeholders or kind of the interested parties that we would want to have their voice at the table as we develop that Vision 2035.
Rick, can I just jump in here really quick? So there was 2 options in here. I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're looking at. We didn't really talk about option A versus option B. The way I read this and the way I kind of, when I talked through it yesterday, all it is, it's the same process, it's the same discussions having with students, staff, family, parents, community, except the timeline for the two options is different. I think option A, that's a condensed timeline where you try to wrap it up this fall.
Right.
So that really puts a lot of stress and pressure on the administration to try to try to hit that timeline. Where the other option B, it's the same process, same steps, same conversations, except the goal would be to wrap it up sometime in 2024, probably spring and fall, somewhere in there. It looks like you got down there. Is that fair assessment, Rick?
Correct.
So I don't get confused as to what they're not different options. It's just the timing of when this process would wrap up.
And I think the more we thought about it and understanding that staff and students are going to be in different buildings, we kind of lean towards option B. And that's kind of where we wanted a little feedback as we set the work session for June, understanding that we're going to kind of lean towards B unless we heard differently that you want us to giddy up and have this process wrapped up by fall.
So that was where I was going with it, Rick. Depending on how quickly the board wants to turn this around will dictate how quickly we got to move and push forward. So I guess I'll open it up to comments or questions here. Start anywhere you guys feel. Pat, go ahead.
My opinion is A's out of the question for me. I want to entertain it. It's got to go for B. You're already behind. I shouldn't say behind, right? But I mean, if we said, hey, get going, you're already behind. So that just questions, Rick, can you remind me the 3 vision areas, please?
Yep, so it's slide 15.
I'm sorry.
Yep. So we're kind of looking at what's the academic experience, right? So how are teachers teaching, how are students learning, how is it different? Then the second piece would be, now that they're 6 through 8 are in a different building, are the rooms set up and designed to align with that experience?
So my only other comment, I think, and I don't even know how to really phrase this, but it'll be tough. It'll be a tough thing to manage between, dreaming and reality, right? And what's going to be, everyone's going to want to talk about costs and they're going to want to talk, but I think it's going to be really important to get the structure right. What would be ideal, and then eventually need to bring in reality and cost into the mix. I know we don't have the answer now, but working through option B, maybe as we get closer to starting it, I think I'd be interested to see it, I don't know, a little more detailed plan of when some of those, how do we frame up those comments? So when you bring the stakeholders to the table, right? I mean, how are we going to engage them? What are the questions? Are we, whatever, I guess is all I'm trying to say.
So what is the process to get those voices and engagement for students, staff, families, and community?
Well, and then maybe even a clear directive, so whoever those groups are, what's the goal, what are we trying to do, how big a thinking do we want, how real, and then, I don't know, prior to moving into community engagement, maybe there's this gate this reality check that needs to pass through with the board, right, to say, this is something that we shouldn't be entertaining right now, or we should be entertaining.
Yep, and actually the key ingredient, right, one of the things that's kind of guided our practice is to have that template, a guiding change template. And so that would be something that would be developed by the administrative team and our teacher leaders between now and our June work session. So it basically talks about current reality, and then where do we want to go? And then, to your point, it's how fast can you accomplish all those things about where you want to go? Kind of like, how do you take bites of the apple?
Super selfish comment, but I'm not available either one of those June dates. So I don't know if we wanted to get into that right now or not, but.
I kind of figured.
Yeah, can we hold that and just, because I was just like a couple other input of, do we have the right areas?
Yeah, Tanya.
Yeah, the areas look great. I was drawn to Area 3, which is the extracurricular and green space one, only because we had recently brought that up, AC brought that up about the track specifically, and I know there's some timelines there as well. It is also like our I think we capture the most students, athletes with that sport. So it is an important one to talk about. But within that year timeframe, I remember that kind of fell within, it still works with the track, so I think we're okay. I also agree, I would not even, A sounded really unrealistic to me. Even 1 year sounds like it's gonna be a challenge to me. So I would definitely lean towards B and be open to, if we need more time, we need more time.
Vicky?
Yeah, B definitely needs to be the way to go. That time, I think we need to invest that, especially with the community. I think we really need to engage our community in this process earlier than later. When it comes to the first two on that list right there, 1, 2, and 3, yeah, the administration and the teachers and the students, that's definitely their realm. I think a broader view of what the community would like to see as far as what their district looks like, I think needs to be put into that mix sooner than later. We heard that in the maintenance referendum. People had ideas already, things that they wanted to do, things that they've thought about. And I want to get their input into some of these decisions that we present, or options that we present before we put them out to everybody. I just think they're the ones we're going to be asking to help support this. I think they need to be involved sooner than later. If there's something we can run in parallel. I know River Falls it took a while, but they created a whole system where they had selected a lot of community members to see what they wanted their school to look like, what they expected their school to do for their students. And I think part of it was, now that you work there, you might know, something with like a bilingual, or being able to work in a world that's growing or something like that. So they've expanded and offered more language classes. They've added more this, more that. So they took that input from the community, and they had like specialists in certain areas kind of sit together and discuss what they wanted to see their schools do, along with individuals who also were active in the school and maybe worked in the school to help guide them through this. And they were all divided up into individual groups that they specialized in. And I happened to work with one of them who was on one of the committees. So I was just thinking that after talking with him, I think what we went through with the maintenance referendum, I just want to see the community involved in some of the coming up with options before we just give them the options and say, give us 1, 2, 3. Pick your priority. I think they really need to be invested in this.
And I think some of the differences between those two, I think between these two groups, the maintenance was like, these things had to happen.
Yeah.
And it was like, how do we prioritize? I think that was a big difference.
Oh,
These
but
are
they
things
had-
like we want to go in
Oh, but
this
that's
direction.
what they were giving us.
Yeah.
I mean, Pat knows, they had these big ideas of like, what are we doing with this building? Why, we
Sure.
just X, Y, and Z, why? And it's like, well, that's for a later conversation.
Which is
Which is
perfect.
not now, which is what we're trying to do now.
Yeah.
And they were ready to do it 2 years ago.
Perfect, yeah.
So it's there, that's why we need to get the community involved sooner than later into this process.
Yeah, I agree. And the different demographics within the community, because I think they're what I see as a parent and what someone sees as a grandparent or someone sees as just a community member with no children is a whole different kind of ball game. And then also, but I like the parameters as well. Like I can come to the table with this dream board, but if fiscally, sometimes you just need to be like, okay, this is your parameter. This is what we have and this is why. And then ask the question, because I think the community needs to be involved, but I think if we open it up and we say, okay, what do you think? And then say, oh, no, not that, you might create more hurt feelings on some stuff. So I think just having the parameters, and this is what we can, this is what we have, this is what we're thinking, and within that, what are you guys thinking about, what do you want your school to look like for those different groups in the community?
Would this be what we would work on at the work session?
Yeah.
Kind of a process?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Ryan, did you have anything on this one?
No. I
Want to join in like a 3-hour workshop with us or something next month? And
It'd be fun.
talk about the 10-year plan? No?
Sounds like a dream.
You'll be in Madison in a year. Rick, I guess, so just to wrap up this whole process here, we're talking, the 4 phases you have are all engagement phases. They're all talking about getting feedback from the different groups.
Exactly.
You're just kind of structuring it in a way where you're gonna, based on bandwidth, probably, you gotta hit one group and then another group and then another group. I don't think we're talking about formulating any options throughout that feedback. Maybe you are, and maybe this probably belongs in the workshop where we would talk about how this works. I think we need to kind of understand what goals we want to come with out of the workshop.
So you'll definitely have a guiding change. Teamworks will provide you with kind of a template or a model of how they would then structure the data gathering and the feedback that you've given so far. I'll run by Christine and, just talking a little bit about making sure that we can work on and discuss in June, kind of how we include. And are the timelines right, or how do we do it sooner?
Rick, this is a dumb question, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Teamworks, this is kind of right in their wheelhouse, right? I mean, they've done this before for other districts.
This is their primary kind of work, is working with communities.
Okay. It's not, this would be the first time I think we've actually asked them to help us kind of formulate a process like this, and they've done this, this is kind of what they do.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, the person working with Christine, Julie, is the one that has basically worked a lot with school districts around the physical environment and working with teachers to be able to articulate that.
So knowing where everybody stands, and Helen, I'm guessing you kind of fall in line with the option B, where we'd kind of try to do this over the next year and a half, right?
Yeah.
So Rick, does that change we need to get a meeting on the calendar, a workshop on the calendar. I don't know if those are the only 2 dates that Teamworks can meet with us. If there's other dates in June that they can shoot us, we want to try to get, we need full participation from the board, but now that we certainly don't want to drag it out either. And I know July is probably going to be even tougher to find a date to meet. And, so we got to find something here. So, I think we need to get more dates to pick from, and then, I don't know if you guys feel very strongly about this, but how long do we put? Do you want me to say that we're gonna take, if we can get 4, we go, or do we need all 5 of us? Because if it gets dragged out till September, is that okay?
Well, I think right now, the dates that we have, 2 of us can't do.
Right. I don't think we want to have less than 4. I think we need at least 4.
And I do know, just talking to them, the one thing is, we would have 2 facilitators. If they go to 1, we might have some additional dates. And then also,
they got to give us more dates than 2.
And then is Monday an option?
For me, Mondays are the best day, but I don't know what everybody else likes.
Not June 5th.
Is there an opportunity to get time earlier in the business day, like sometime in like the early afternoons to do this? Because I know a lot of times it's the schedules for us, because we have obligations that, obviously we have real work, but like Ed May is when, the kids have stuff going on, right? We're always busy with stuff. So is there an opportunity to start at 3 or 4 o'clock or something like that if we have enough lead time?
If we go after school year, that works.
Yeah. And after the 12th, because Mother Nature was not nice, so that's the way it is.
So I can usually do it, and I hate to, the problem with the 6th is until high school sports are done, it's hard to, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to schedule on a non-activity day, I can have a lot more flexibility.
So on the 12th, Helen, is it too soon? Or would the 12 work as a Monday?
Well, I don't.
Now we're.
Well, no, that would not work. The first Monday that would work, the 19th.
The 19th. Sorry.
The 19th
Find
is the
out
first
days
Monday.
that Christine can offer up, any day.
Yeah.
And if it means like she can do earlier in the afternoon, or they can do earlier in the afternoon, let's get all that from them and then see if we can figure
Yeah,
out.
I'll just take my lunch at the end of the day.
Because you were the one, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
hear. So we do have, Mike, you could work during the
I'll
day,
make it work.
potentially?
Yeah.
I could, and the 12th actually would work for me.
Okay.
But the 12th doesn't work for Helen.
The 12th, I'm not.
That's her
So
last
starting on the
Gotcha.
13th.
I'm working.
It could be late afternoon.
No.
Well, I mean, like, what time?
Looking at, are you pending, like,
Is
This
5
is-
o'clock the earliest?
This is
no,
fun.
On the 13th, 5 o'clock is the earliest.
You know, but when can
there's
you,
baseball playoffs.
all the way through June?
You're not gonna miss
No,
that.
the 13th would be the last possible day.
Oh,
Okay, so then starting the 14th, we could go before 5. I'm just trying to find times. Or do you want
We
5
can-
o'clock? to
we
be
can
the-
Can we
take
do
this
it?
offline.
I think
Yeah,
we
we
need
should
to do
take
it
this
that.
offline. I mean, I'm traveling, I'm out of town, I don't want to bother you guys all
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
tonight.
All right.
Stuff.
But we all realize that we got a lot of stuff going on, and summer is really hard
Yeah.
to get a full 5-person board at anything. So that's the goal, but I mean, we're gonna have to make some decisions. I might lean on you guys to kind of give me some advice there.
I just think let's start with a whole bunch more dates.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
are 2 days, and
Yeah.
Agree.
they're just not good days for us. So let's start with a bunch more, and then let's go with the majority, and we'll have to go with that.
Okay.
So Maria, can you just send Christine for Teamworks to send back dates in June where only one of them would be available instead of both?
we
Is July
need to?
too late? Is that?
You can do July as well, but
I mean,
we could start with June. If that doesn't work, we can see what July does. All right, are we good?
Good.
Because yes,
All right, we're gonna move on to number 8, recognition of visitors. Is there the one person in the audience that would care to be recognized? Actually, technically, you all can be recognized. You just have to come to the podium and announce your name and whether or not you're
That's
representing the
actually
school
in the new
district.
policy that
Yeah,
we
the
have?
policy says you can do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Maria, anybody over there? No? All right. We're gonna move on to adjourn. Take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Someone?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you.